their smirks were the last thing you'd see as they walked away. They thought your silence was defeat, your pain was weakness, and your tears were proof that they had won. But what they didn't know, what they never saw coming, was that your silence was power gathering. Your tears were truth being purified. And your pain was preparing to become your weapon. They said your pain was preparing to become your weapon. The narcissist laughed in secret when you were on your knees. They fed on your confusion, your apologies, your attempts to fix what they themselves had shattered. You thought if you gave more love, more patience, more understanding, they would see your heart, but you were dealing with someone who had none. You were playing a fair game with someone who never intended to follow rules. The battlefield was rigged from the beginning, and still you survived. Understand this. Narcissists don't win, not in the end. Oh, they may look like they're winning when they discard you, parade someone else in front of your wounds, or act like they never knew your name. But what they gain in false pride, they lose in peace. What they steal in moments, they pay for in years. The game they play is not sustainable. The masks always fall. The house they build on lies always collapses, because karma doesn't forget. And the universe has a peculiar way of defending those who love with real hearts. They underestimated your silence. They thought when you stopped talking, you were defeated. They assumed your withdrawal was surrender. What they didn't realize is that your silence was the loudest scream of transformation. It wasn't weakness, it was wisdom taking shape. Narcissists thrive on attention, on control, on the constant need to provoke a reaction from you. The moment you stop giving them that fuel, they begin to decay from the inside out. That silence they laughed at in the beginning becomes the very thing that dismantles their illusion of power. There is a reason narcissists push, prod, provoke. They want a response. They want you to cry, to beg, to argue, to explain, to justify yourself. Because every single word you say gives them validation. It tells them they still matter. They still give them validation. It tells them they still have access to your emotional world. But when you go silent, truly silent, not just quiet with resentment, but detached with clarity, they panic. You may not see it immediately. They may try to pretend they don't care, but deep down they feel the shift. And the shift terrifies them. Your silence means you are no longer playing their game. It means you no longer care to convince them of your worth, explain their damage, or wait for them to change. It means you've started turning inward, building boundaries, protecting your peace, and understanding that their opinion of you never defined your value in the first place. This is the silence of empowerment. Not of defeat, but of discovery. And it's in this silence that the narcissist begins to lose everything. They lose their favorite toy, the emotional leash they once yanked with ease. They lose their sense of superiority because you no longer see them as powerful. They lose their illusion of importance in your life because your peace no longer includes them. That's when the panic begins to bloom behind their mask. But instead of admitting they're losing you, they'll often lash out louder, flaunt replacements, post fake happiness, or play victim to anyone who listens, because they're scrambling to recreate the emotional chaos your silence has taken away. But the truth is, nothing destroys a narcissist more than being ignored by the very person they once controlled. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back everything they fear. emptiness, unworthiness, irrelevance. And the more you withhold your energy, the more they begin to shrink. You may not see them crumble in front of you. It might happen behind closed doors, in the stillness of their solitude, in the echoes of their own emptiness. But rest assured, they feel the weight of your silence every single day. You, on the other hand, begin to rise. In silence, you start hearing your own voice again. You begin to distinguish between your wounds and your wisdom. You start realizing that you don't owe responses to those who abused your empathy. That not reacting is not giving up, it's growing up. That your peace is too sacred to be disturbed by someone who only sees people as pawns in their game. And so the silence that once felt heavy becomes your greatest protection. It becomes the sword you never had to swing, the armor you never had to wear, the boundary you never had to explain. It becomes the symbol of your healing, because when you finally stop speaking to the narcissist, you start listening to yourself. And in that space, you don't just survive, you start to live. Let them lose you in silence. Let them wonder. Let them miss what they thought would never walk away. You owe them nothing. Not closure, not a comeback, not even a goodbye. Your silence said it all. Narcissists live for the illusion of winning. They walk away from the chaos they cause and smirk as if they've conquered something, as if they've outsmarted or overpowered you. They flaunt new relationships, throw indirect jabs, and wear fake confidence like a crown. From the outside, it can seem like they've won, that they're happy, that they've moved on effortlessly, while you're left picking up the pieces of your broken heart. But what you need to understand deeply, truly, is that these so-called victories are nothing but temporary highs built on lies. The crash always comes, and when it does, it's not soft, it's devastating. Narcissists win battles by cheating the rules of human decency. They manipulate, gaslight, triangulate, and discard without remorse. And they might fool a few people. They might get applause from the uninformed. They might convince the world that they're thriving. But behind the curtain, where their masks can't save them, they're drowning in a truth they can't escape. They are empty without your energy. They are weak without your validation. They are powerless without your attention. You were the soul that made them feel significant, even when they never admitted it. And when they lose you, they lose the only thing keeping their illusion alive. Everything they thought they had after you, new admiration, fresh attention, a new supply, starts to wear off. Because it's never about the person, it's about the power. And the power doesn't come from anyone else the way it came from you. You were real, your love was deep, your loyalty unmatched, and that cannot be replicated. So while they post smiles and pretend nothing's wrong, the rot begins inside. Slowly, steadily, painfully, they start to lose grip on their own narrative. People begin to see the cracks. New partners begin to sense the manipulation. The lies catch up. The charm fades. And they have no idea how to sustain anything real, because they never learned how to nurture, only how to use. That's why their false victories don't last. They don't know how to maintain peace, so the chaos comes back. They don't know how to receive love, only extract it. So the new supply eventually dries up too. And suddenly, they're back in the same hollow state they were in before they met you, only now it's worse. Because now they've tasted something pure and lost it. The most devastating thing for a narcissist is realizing the person they discarded is the one person they can never replace. And that realization doesn't come instantly. It hits them when they least expect it at night, when the lights go off and there's no one to perform for. In moments of silence when no distractions can drown out the regret. It's in those moments that they remember your kindness, your patience, your unwavering presence, and it eats them alive. You see, their wins were built on manipulation. And manipulation has an expiration date. You can only fool people for so long. You can only run from your emptiness for so far. Eventually they come face to face with everything they tried to escape, and by then you're already gone, already healing, already glowing in your truth. That's why their victories are never real, because they cost them the very thing that made them feel whole for a moment, your love. And now, as they lose it all, you gain everything. Because you didn't lose them, they lost you. They gained too much. They lost you. And that truth will haunt them in ways you'll never need to witness. You became the mirror they couldn't bear to look into. Not because you were harsh or critical, but because you were real. You reflected back to them the truth of who they are. And that's what terrified them. Narcissists live in a world of illusions where they are always the victim or the hero, never the villain. They curate their lives like a movie, with themselves in the starring role, and everyone else reduced to extras who must serve the script. But then you walked in not as an actor in their fantasy, but as a real human being with a real heart, real expectations, and real love. And that disrupted everything. You weren't supposed to question. You weren't supposed to expect emotional depth. You weren't supposed to hold up that mirror with your honesty, your accountability, your compassion that demanded mutual respect. But you did. You stood in front of them and reflected back a version of themselves they didn't want to face. Not the charming image they show the world, but the insecure, manipulative, emotionally immature self they try so hard to hide. And instead of growing, instead of using that reflection to evolve, they chose to destroy the mirror. They began to devalue you, not because you lost worth, but because you started seeing theirs too clearly. You started noticing the cracks in their stories, the inconsistencies in their actions, the patterns of emotional withdrawal and gaslighting. And as your awareness grew, so did their discomfort. Because now you weren't just someone to extract admiration from, you were someone who could expose their truth. And the narcissist can't handle being truly seen, not in the way you saw them. They crave admiration, not intimacy. They want to be adored, not understood. And so the very depth that made you a gift became a threat to them. Your empathy reminded them of everything they were missing inside. Your consistency made them aware of their own instability. Your love highlighted their incapacity to truly love. That's why they had to discard you or sabotage the connection, because staying with you meant continuing to face a mirror that showed them everything they needed to heal but refused to acknowledge. But the tragedy for them and the triumph for you is that once you're gone, they can't unsee what you revealed. They may try to bury it, distract from it, or replace you quickly, but your presence left a mark that can't be erased. You became the standard, the measure, the echo in their silence. And no matter how many people they try to pull into their orbit, none will reflect their truth as deeply as you did. Because what you offered wasn't just love, it was exposure. And that kind of exposure is unforgettable. Meanwhile, you grow because you're not afraid of the mirror. You faced your pain. You examined your trauma. You chose self-reflection over blame. And in doing so, you became stronger, wiser, more whole. The very thing they rejected in you is what you now use to rebuild yourself. And the reflection you carry forward is one of courage, clarity, and truth. So while they run from mirror to mirror, searching for a reflection that flatters their illusion, you walk boldly into your healing, knowing you were never the problem. You were simply the mirror that told the truth, and the truth always outlives the lie. They'll search for you in every soul they meet, but they'll never find you, because what you gave wasn't ordinary. It was rare. It was deep. It was real. Narcissists, in their arrogance, often believe everyone is replaceable, that they can treat you however they want and still find someone else to take your place the moment you leave. But what they fail to understand is that not everyone has your heart. Not everyone loves like you. Not everyone stays soft through storms and shows up even after being hurt. You were different, and deep down they knew it. When they discarded you or pushed you away, they didn't just lose a person. They lost a connection they may never experience again. At the time, they probably thought they upgraded. Maybe they found someone new, someone who admired them instantly, someone easier to impress. But narcissists don't bond, they feed. And when the newness wears off, when the new person starts to see through the act, the cycle repeats. Because no one can ever give them what they truly crave, genuine connection without conditions, since they themselves never offer it. You weren't just love to them. You were light. You were the calm in their chaos, the one who gave them chance after chance, even when they didn't deserve it. You saw the good in them when they couldn't even see it in themselves. And now, with you gone, that warmth is gone too. They'll try to find it in others, but it won't feel the same. It won't hit as deeply. It won't heal them like you tried to. And that's when the regret sets in. Not just for what they did, but for what they'll never get back. At first, they may act unaffected. They may show off, pretend they've moved on, or pretend they never cared. But over time, as reality sets in and the attention from others fades, your absence becomes louder. And they realize too late that what they had with you wasn't just another relationship. It was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to grow, to be better, to be loved unconditionally. And they threw it away. The weight of that loss doesn't hit all at once. It hits in waves, in quiet moments, in memories they didn't expect to keep, in songs, smells, or places that trigger flashes of what they had. And in those moments, it doesn't matter how many people are around them. They'll feel the emptiness of your absence in ways no one else can fill, because people like you don't come around twice. You weren't replaceable. You were a lesson they had to learn the hard way. And while they remain stuck in their cycle of taking and discarding, you move on, you heal, you grow into someone even more powerful. And the love you once gave them, you finally give it back to yourself. That's when the balance shifts. That's when you stop wondering what you lacked and start realizing what they lost. You were the one they should have protected, the one they should have fought for, the one they should have valued while they had the chance, but they didn't. And now they'll live with that because they can surround themselves with attention, admiration, and flattery, but they'll never feel what they felt when they had you. You were irreplaceable. And they'll carry the weight of that truth for the rest of their lives. You don't need revenge. You don't need to scream. expose, or prove anything to anyone. Your healing is the loudest, most devastating answer you'll ever give to a narcissist. They expect you to fight back, to get angry, to stoop to their level, to obsess over what they did. That's how they feed. That's how they know they still have control. But when you stop fighting, when you stop talking about them, when you stop trying to prove how much they hurt you, and instead you just rise, they begin to unravel. Because nothing confuses a narcissist more than being ignored by someone they thought they broke. They expect chaos. They expect you to react. They want to be the center of your pain because it validates their twisted sense of importance. But your peace, your silence, your refusal to play their game, that is a kind of power they can't touch. When you begin to pour energy into yourself, into your growth, into your future, they are no longer the focus. And when they're not the focus, they feel invisible. That invisibility is torture for them because the narcissist doesn't care if you love them or hate them, as long as you're still emotionally tied to them. But healing severs that cord. Healing says, you don't get to own a part of me anymore. The narcissist might not say it, but they feel the shift. They feel it when your eyes stop begging for closure, when your voice no longer trembles with pain, when your laughter returns not as a performance, but as a sign of freedom. They sense it in your detachment, in your ability to let them go without needing an apology. And that is what destroys them. Because in their world, they believe no one truly moves on from them. They live in the delusion that they are unforgettable, irreplaceable, always missed. So when you prove otherwise, without even trying, you deliver the justice they never saw coming. This is why your healing is enough. You don't need revenge when you have peace. You don't need to tarnish their name when their own actions will do that for you. You don't need to bring them down because they've already built their lives on lies, and lies always collapse. You just need to rise quietly, powerfully, relentlessly. The more you focus on your growth, the more their grip fades. Not because you're pretending to be okay, but because you are finally becoming okay. And the beautiful irony is that everything they tried to destroy in you, your confidence, your voice, your spirit, is exactly what rises stronger. They tried to take your light, but in healing, you shine brighter. They tried to make you doubt your worth, but in healing, you see your value clearer than ever. They tried to make you believe you'd never be whole again, but in healing, you become more complete than you've ever been. Revenge fades, exposure fades, but healing lasts. And the peace that comes from knowing you took back your power without ever lowering yourself, that is the victory that can never be taken from you. That is the victory that can never be taken from you. So let them say what they want. Let them rewrite the story. It doesn't matter. They thought they won, but they lost everything. You were never the one who needed them. They needed you. They needed your light, your attention, your presence to feel powerful. But now that you're gone, now that you've detached, they're left with the very thing they feared most: themselves. Narcissists lose everything the moment you realize your worth. The moment you stop fighting for the relationship. The moment you stop explaining your pain. The moment you stop waiting for them to change. Everything begins to collapse for them, and everything begins to rise for you. At first, it doesn't look that way. It may seem like they've moved on, like they're thriving, like they're surrounded by admiration and new love, but it's all a performance. Because they didn't just lose you, they lost the part of themselves they pretended to have when they were with you. You were their stability. You were the emotional anchor. You were the one who kept forgiving, loving, holding space. And now that you've pulled away, their foundation begins to rot. Because they built their strength on your empathy, not their own. They built their confidence on your validation, not their inner self. And when that's gone, they're left hollow. The narcissist loses control when you no longer dance to their emotional games. When your boundaries become real and your silence becomes consistent, they no longer have a grip on you. They can't provoke guilt or charm their way back into your mind. That's when they panic. Not always outwardly, but internally. Because their power was never real. It was borrowed from you. And now that you've taken it back, they're exposed. They lose more than access. They lose your energy, your softness, your care. They lose the one person who saw them as more than their mask. And as much as they pretended not to care, deep down they always knew you were the one thing they didn't deserve but desperately needed. Now they're surrounded by shallow connections, quick fixes, and temporary praise, none of which touch them the way your presence did. And that void, it only grows louder with time. And while they sink deeper into their cycle, you rise. Because now your energy is being poured into you. Your heart is no longer bleeding for someone who only knew how to take. You're rebuilding, not just your life, but your identity. You're remembering who you were before they tried to define you. And for the first time in a long time, you're living on your terms, not theirs. The narcissist may try to return. They may test the waters, send a message, drop a hint, not because they love you, but because they feel you slipping from their grasp. They feel the energy has shifted. They feel their control has died. But by then, it's too late. Because now, you don't react. You don't reach back. You don't break. And that's their real loss. Not just losing you, but realizing they never really had you. They had access to your love, your energy, your heart, but they never truly earned it. And now they never will again. You, on the other hand, have gained everything. You've gained clarity, peace, purpose. You've gained the strength that comes from surviving something that was meant to break you. You've gained a relationship with yourself so powerful that no manipulator can penetrate it again. So while they're still stuck in the past, trying to relive what they lost, you're building a future that no narcissist can touch. And that future, that's your victory. Not because you destroyed them, but because you saved yourself.